Descent of the Divine. In adoring the advent of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, we are respecting a tradition in a formal sense. Traditionally speaking, we participate in the occurrence of a great divine intervention, and we also rejoice in the Mahasamadhi of an exalted personality. Incarnations come with the power of the Absolute, and the great ones depart with the power of the totality when they leave. That is why every incarnation or avatara is celebrated with the greatest enthusiasm that a devotee can summon. And a devotee rejoices in the achievement of the individual who has merged with the cosmic reality in celebrating the Aradhana or Mahasamadhi of a great being. In the Hindu tradition, we have this sacred day where we worship the divine intervention that took place thousands of years ago in a human form in the month of Bhadrapada, the dark moon, 8th day, Ashtamatiti, Rohini Nakshatra, which normally occurs between August and September. We rejoice in the advent of this great personality. No amount of exposition on the greatness of Bhagavan Sri Krishna can be told in simple terms by anyone for the simple reason of Sri Krishna's capacity that is enshrined in his total life. A commentary of his life may be the message that he was trying to impart. Which aspect of Krishna can anyone speak about? Whether it is a simple birth of a baby and the baby who is taken out to another house and the occurrence that is happening at midnight in the Ashtami Tithi, which avatar aspect can we ever speak about? Can we talk about Bhagavatam Krishna? Can we talk about Balakrishna? Can we talk about the Leela Vinoda? Can we talk about the Rasa Leela Krishna? Can we talk about the Bhagavad Gita Krishna? Which Krishna? We will not be able to satisfactorily describe the majestic momentum that was created in the human understanding that has been exposed before us by the magnificent and glorious presentation of this personality that we adore as Bhagavan Sri Krishna. In the astrological traditions, it is said that we must avoid Ashtami and Navami to do any auspicious work or embark on a new work or embark on a new initiative. It appears that they went and complained to the Almighty, why are we discarded on Ashtami and Navami? That is why these great incarnations decided to embark on this planet Earth with the force of the Absolute, where they demonstrated the capacity of the human individual to conceive the human personality through a human mind in the personification in the advent of Lord Rama, which occurs at midday at noon. The other personality is where it exposes the human mind to understand the totality of the Almighty when it comes at midnight in the Ashtami Tithi. Rama Navami is celebrated in the midday and the Krishna Ashtami is celebrated at midnight with the advent of this great personality. When life has stooped to its lowest ebb, when we are in a state of sheer darkness, when we are struggling to find a way to search for a radiant light, there occurs a divine intervention as he promises in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says the occurrence will come to set up a balance in the system of the cosmos. Whatever we hold as bad or good is a sustaining impact in the force of nature when it operates. When it exceeds its brief, there is an imbalance. So, a balance has to be maintained by a superimposing entity which we call the reality of the Absolute. Even in our normal day-to-day life, when we are traumatized by events which are unbearable, the word that we use is unbearable. But even though they are unbearable, we continue to be existing afterwards. If it is unbearable, we will not exist. It is only a terminology. Even to the extreme point of difficulty, there comes a radiant hope. There is a ray of light which flashes forth and tranquilizes our personality into becoming serene, to becoming normal, to becoming centrally focused. It is there an incarnation takes place because it balances and overpowers the two opposing forces of operation. Such is the advent of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, whom we adore in the personality of a human form. So which aspect of Bhagavan Sri Krishna can we talk about? We entertain in our mind and comprehend in our intellect and experience the fullness, which is something that is unimaginable to the human mind. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha, says the Rig Veda, where the mind and intellect go and come back totally baffled, unable to express the experience that is being presented to the individual, where you cannot express the divinity. You do not know what is happening at that time. The total force comes with a delight in a very charming manner, in a very humble manner. The extremes meet at a very safe point in the presentation of the birth of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Krishna did not behave in the manner that we would normally expect a person to behave because he was not a person. He was not a sannyasi who was giving a sermon. He was not a simple householder as we think in the normal sense of the term. He was the best student in the Sandipani. He was the best renunciate when it comes to renunciation. He was a total integration. He was total integrity. He was the most resourceful aspect of everything that you can conceive. He was total knowledge. So which aspect of Krishna can we handle in our life is the question. Krishna, K stands for knowledge, R stands for renunciation, I stands for integrity, S stands for simplicity, H stands for humility, N stands for nobility, A stands for activity. There was no point at which Krishna was absent as such. He was continuously engaged in action. So which aspect of Krishna can we discuss is a very difficult situation that a seeker has to see here. I am only trying to talk from the viewpoint of a seeker, not a simple devotee who can muster a feeling and express it and surrender totally. Here a seeker has a different perspective. It is not that devotion is wrong, but devotion has to culminate in the understanding of total knowledge, which is why the Bhagavad Gita Krishna stands as a supreme personality. The Bhagavad Gita is not a simple text for any particular seeker or any particular sect or any particular group of people or any particular time of operation. It is like a GPS system. When you put in your address, your car is driven and you know where to go. When you are in a confused state of mind, as an infant, as a social being, as a national entity, as a private citizen, as a responsible citizen, as a householder, as a teacher, as a student, as a layman, as a beggar, as a king, as an emperor, in all these aspects, how you conduct the affairs of your personality is beautifully directed in the GPS system that we find in the Bhagavad Gita. He did not rush there to give knowledge. He was a person who was waiting to be asked. First of all, you must know how to clarify your personality and present it in a manner by which you can state completely what your difficulty is. We can simply say that we have so many difficulties. You can say it is a financial difficulty. You can say it is a political suppression. You can say it is a racial discrimination. You can say it is an international non-cooperativeness. Whatever terminology you use is finally a terminology that does not define itself in its totality. A Purna Avatara is a person who wants a total aspect of your inefficiency or efficiency to be put forth. Unless you express yourself totally, Krishna is not going to be present for your verification, for your identification, for your personality to participate in the development that takes place when you meet the cosmic reality. That is why the Bhagavad Gita is such a structured principle. It talks about Brahma Vidya. Straight away he talks about the Absolute. You must know the ideal that you want to reach in life. What could be the greatest ideal? The ideal of knowledge. The knowledge which talks about the total knowledge, which is known as Brahma Vidya. How do you achieve that ideal? You know the address that you put in the GPS. How do you reach that? What is the methodology that you employ? What are the resources that you have with you? The capabilities of the different temperaments are at loggerheads with one another. In all these circumstances, you contradict yourself. Rise above the conflict within yourself and conform to that glorious form of Vishwarupa Darshana in the 11th chapter. These are points that have to be repeatedly understood in terms of the development that is brought forth in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan Sri Krishna shows the total form in 4 places, if I am correct. He shows that in Duryodhana's assembly. He shows the total personality in the 11th chapter. And he goes and shows that to his mother Yashoda, and also to Bhishma, the greatest devotee of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Can we ever qualify ourselves to be a Bhishma, to understand what that devotion is? He who is acting as commander-in-chief of the opposing force, and yet he was the most beautiful devotee of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. He says, I will make Bhagavan Sri Krishna raise a weapon. Bhagavan Sri Krishna took a vow not to raise a weapon. A total being who is contradicting his own vows for the sake of a humble devotee who stood steadfast in the principle of devotion. That is Bhishma. Bhishma Pitamaha's role cannot be defined or understood by any normal mind. If you cannot understand the role of Bhishma Pitamaha, you can never understand the role of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. If you do not understand the capacity of Arjuna, you can never understand Bhagavad Gita. You have to become a Bhishma as well as an Arjuna in your own personality. Both are opposing one another. You cannot simply become an Arjuna by naming yourself Arjuna. You must have the mind, the psychological seed. That which stood on the battlefield of Kurukshetra has to be in you. Then only can you understand the context in which the Bhagavad Gita is showing its map. That is the Yoga Shastra. And when the Yoga Shastra is applied, you will be able to reach the destination where the Krishna-Arjuna Samvada is taking place, where the relative is talking to the Absolute, where the individual is talking to the universal, where a merging of the river with the ocean takes place. This is the methodology of the structured pattern of educating the mind, which is kept in a restricted manner from the beginning of our life struggle. It is also the pattern that you will find in the Buddhist philosophy, where they say Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Buddha is the ideal, and to follow the ideal you need a constitution which is a Sangha. What do they reach? They reach the Dhamma. Every scripture has tried to put forth this particular ideal of reaching the final destination of unification that is sought by the restlessness of the mind. To merge with the cosmic mind is a wonderful climax in the development of the Bhagavad Gita. To understand Bhagavad Gita, you must understand the personality of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Bhagavan Sri Krishna did not ever run to give a message. He was a child. He played his tricks. He showed the Vishwarupa Darshan to his own mother. He was also a humble person who was cleaning the feet of everyone who came for the great Rajasuya Yajna. And he was the greatest warrior. And he was the greatest person who could communicate in a masterful way to the simplest of devotees when he was roaming the forests in Vrindavan. Yet he was able to talk on the highest philosophy with Uddhava as well as with Arjuna. Later on, that exaltation with which he spoke on the battlefield at Kurukshetra could not be repeated when that request was made by Arjuna. Arjuna asked, when the Dharma Pattabhisheka or the coronation of the eldest brother Dharmaputra was taking place in Hastinapura, can you please repeat the message that you gave me in that wondrous manner at the battlefield of Kurukshetra for the benefit of all those in this assembly? Please, O Bhagavan Sri Krishna, could you bring back the force which gave me that wisdom, which made me fight this war and win the battle? If Arjuna had lost the war after hearing the Bhagavad Gita, none of us would sit here to talk about it. We are hearing it over and over again through tongues and minds of many men over the past many centuries, only because it was spoken with the greatest attention and attentive meditation by the Supreme Personality, who stood as a humble charioteer and spoke the voices of sermons that cannot ever be conceived by a human mind. He said, I cannot recollect that because at the time of the commencement of the war, when you were in a diffused condition, when there was chaos in the minds of everybody was totally confused and everybody was wondering what was going to happen, I was in a state of highest meditation, and due to that, the knowledge came then. I cannot capture or replicate it once again. However, I shall try to present to you in a nutshell what we spoke at the time of the commencement of the war. And that is what is known as Anu Gita. Again, the Gita, a simplified version of the total Bhagavad Gita, is given in a nutshell as an Anu Pramana, as if it is an oceanic vitamin or an atomic energy propelling that was given by Bhagavan Sri Krishna. What was his capacity? A person who talks the highest wisdom and again comes back to give the same message in a nutshell? You are not a simple author of what you say. You are what you believe. You live that life. Bhagavan Sri Krishna's life has to be understood in the context with which he commanded the resources from the physical point of view, from the psychological point of view, from the mental point of view, from the rational point of view, from the spiritual point of view. All aspects of the total being of Bhagavan Sri Krishna have to be understood. It is not a simple adoration that we do today and then think that next Ashtami takes place in 2010 and we can celebrate it then. It is a celebration that goes on all the time whenever the dawn of this great knowledge breaks through our personality and brings in an integration of understanding when conflicts take place in us. When integration occurs through the flash of knowledge that flows by the grace of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, you are adoring him. You are enacting the understanding of the advent that is taking place. And that is the meaning of Krishna Janmashtami. Arjuna said, I do not know, my hands are trembling, my legs are shaking, my thighs are not wanting to move an inch, my mind is confused, my intellect has stopped functioning, my brain is totally defunct. What happens to such a person? He is a corpse. And when he cried at that time, Bhagavan Sri Krishna smiled and spoke with a force that is unimaginable. Tears will well up in your eyes when you think about the occasion of this great message that is coming forth from this person, because with a sweet smile, he wipes your tears. And when he wipes your tears, he also gives you the clarity by which your mind can grasp this wonderful knowledge. It is a dark night of the soul in the first chapter. Then it is the immortality of the soul in the second chapter. You do not know it is dark now, whether the sun will rise in the morning tomorrow. You do not know whether there will be a ray of hope in the morning. Yet there is a conviction that this darkness will pass, because that which comes in has to go also. It is that blessed occasion of understanding that brings forth this great message of Bhagavan Sri Krishna when he dawns there as the supreme wisdom. It was not a physiological personality who stood there. It was the dawn of a knowledge that comes and captures the imagination of your understanding with a force where he lifts you very gently to introduce your personality into a wider understanding. Life is nothing but understanding one another. Life is nothing but integrating with one another. Life is nothing but loving one another. Life is nothing but not contradicting one another. Life is a cooperation, not a clash. And this understanding has to be understood by sincere seeking centers of consciousness, because we seek not anything that is related to material philosophy. We seek the principles of the total understanding in a total and magnified manner, so as to see the cosmic connectedness with everything. In that blessedness, Bhagavan Sri Krishna reveals himself. Krishna did not reveal himself as a person, a playboy, as we tend to describe him with our poor understanding. How can he be with 16,000 people? How can he have his play with the flute? How can a man control the personality of a single being through the charming flute that he played? With so many holes, your five senses, your mind, your intellect, all controlled by the eighth hole, from where he controls the movement of the air and breathes in a freshness by which you are able to capture the glimpses of the Absolute, from where he controls your senses through the movement of the music. That music brings you a rhythm to your life. And to that rhythm, you perform dexterously the various activities that are expected of an individual. Activity has to be total, not partial. Your surrender must be total, otherwise you cannot have the grace of God. Everything has to be connected with totality. Never will any partial behavior be tolerated by the kingdom of the Absolute. When there is a total offering of all our follies at the feet of the mighty being, there dawns the greatest wisdom that any human being can ever seek. A life of totality has to come. Then only does life have a meaning and purpose. You cannot say, I'll be partially present at home through my mind, and I'll be partially present at the office. I'll perform both duties because I am responsible for two different things. You are responsible for the now, not the future, nor the past. You are a total being in the now. You cease to be a total being when recalling your past or focusing on your future. The presence of Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the now made the Mahabharata war come to the fruition in the form of Bhagavad Gita, where a person is totally present in the execution of an activity. That activity is brilliant. That activity is total. that activity cannot have any personal identification. It is a cosmic participation. When a simple person gives a simple smile to another, it is a total cosmic activity that is taking place. It is not an isolated event that is taking place in the corner of your room or in a hall in a different country. It is a total activity of the zodiac system, of the total planetary complex. Such is the truth that Bhagavan Sri Krishna was trying to express to Arjuna when he was utterly confused. When he cried, he made the dead person come alive. You must have seen the great film Dead Man Walking. He literally did that thousands of years ago. He made a dead corpse come to life and perform the greatest activity because the activity was total. He was not a dead man in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He fought the war like a warrior ought to fight a war. A warrior is supposed to fight, and you have to become an intellectual warrior at least. It is not the fight that he talked about. It is not a violence that he initiated. He talked about a total performance of an activity where every negativity has to be cut asunder. When you cut asunder, you are not angry with somebody. You are not cutting the person. You are cutting the anger of the person. You are cutting the injustice of the person because God is law and justice. Judgment comes from law, but from God comes justice. And justice is a superintending force of the judgment that you dispense in a court of law. That is a principle that Bhagavan Sri Krishna was trying to demonstrate when he gave the greatest wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, which made this great person go and fight the war. Arjuna was not a stupid person. He was the most valiant warrior in the battlefield. He had the greatest intellect. He had the greatest stamina and physical ability. He had great intellectual capacity. He had everything due to which he won the most crucial wars for the Pandavas in the past. And such a mind was devastated at the age of 75 when he saw his own kith and kin, and he was utterly confused, and he spoke a language that even a child should not speak. At that time, the gentle mother, the understanding father, the all-knowing guru, the great world teacher is silently telling, you are grieving for that which you should not at all grieve for. Normally, whatever we cry for in our little behavior from morning to evening appear to be very significant at that point in time. But when we are past those days and sit back and think about that, it will seem silly and we will laugh at that. Why did we do this particular thing and cry about it? Every action gets imprinted in our personality, as well as the anxiety that we have for the future. Every disturbance, if analyzed in the context of the present, in the now, will definitely clear away. We are never present in the now. We cannot associate ourselves to be present in the now. We have to continuously plan. There is an economic planning. There is a governmental planning. There is a central function that is known as planning. But in the cosmic law, there is no planning. It is an instant behavior of the totality when you are integrated with everybody with whom you want to have a plan. In our tradition, we welcome anybody at any time. That is why the guest is God for us. Atiti is a person who comes to your home without informing, who does not come in a titi. A person who does not attend a function by premeditating on the event or seeing the titi, who suddenly appears, is welcomed as that person had no intention. But when he has fixed an appointment, we have guarded our personality to behave with that person with all the pleasantries that we can muster in spite of the difficulty that we have at home, like financial difficulties or incapabilities in another area. We'll put on the most wondrous Peter London shirt, the most exquisite tie, and the pointed shoes, and say, "Good morning, good evening." And we will start with our fork and spoon 1 minute, 2 minutes, and exchange pleasantries and never come to the point. But when you are with an Atithi, you are instantly cooperating with the integrality that is existing with you and the other, who you are meeting, and in that union you meet and bring about joy, because it is beyond the two confines, the controlling positions of the two people. That is why Atithi is significant. That is why we say the guest is God. That is why we adore an Atithi more than all the sacred people that we can muster in our mind's imagination. Atithi is very significant. If you want to have an appointment and meet somebody, there could be a disappointment. But if you can meet anybody without any appointment, there could be great benefit because you did not expect anything. The moment you go with an expectation to meet somebody, by having this evening dinner diplomacy, you may have a failure. But if you go without a plan and suddenly you meet somebody in Canal Walk and have a mug and bean coffee and you say, "Hi, come and join me," there is a beautiful, pleasant evening because you will embrace one another. There is no planning. And when there is no planning, you will merge with one another at heart level. And when you merge with one another at heart level, you will also expand at the emotional level. When you expand at an emotional level, it will simply lift you into a spiritual communion, which is what we are expected to do in this life. That spiritual communion that we emphasize is known as the Krishna-Arjuna Samvada, where the individual point is meeting the pressure point of the Absolute. It is not Mr. So-and-so meeting somebody as somebody else. In the West, they say, "Oh, you are Libra. Oh, I am Gemini, so I can't meet you. What's your date of birth? Oh, then we can't have a date." Why do you have a date? Without dates, you can meet many dates. You must meet somebody because you are somebody, not because somebody is a somebody. You must meet one another in spite of what you are, in spite of what the other person is. Life is to share what you are not, and to give what you are, and to share what the other is not, and to take from what the other is. That is the meaning of life. We do not meet anybody because we are strangers. We meet everybody because it is an incident that is occurring due to the cosmic pressure that is taking place in a different realm of expression from the planetary position, from the universal operational point. It is a cosmic event that is taking place, and we are unfolding our personality in the development that is taking place, and in that meeting there is union. Then clashes cease to be. Peace will prevail, and peace will become the most purposeful meaning to life at that level. Until such thinking comes, we will be meeting everybody on the surface. We will shake hands only with the stick. That is all. We do not even have a uniform way of saluting one another. There is no uniformity at any point. I am not stressing the point of uniformity, but the grasp of a situation. We think, when I talked to that person, he didn't even smile at me. He did not even want to look at me. He is probably avoiding me. We jump to conclusions. Every conclusion need not be a correct conclusion. Every conclusion creates another confusion, and every confusion leads us to a dislocation of our personality. When we are dislocated, there cannot be harmony. What two individuals create as a ripple within their own limitations of understanding create a big war in world events, as you see in the pages of history. Two single individuals can create a magnificent war because that is a beautiful poem to sell your arms and ammunitions. They want to sustain your interdependence in a conflicting zone whereby they can work towards their betterment. But that is not the need of the hour. The need of the hour is to understand the centrality of the knowledge that is emanating from the teachings of such exalted presentations, from the pressure point known as Bhagavan Sri Krishna. He could behave as a tender person or as a thundering personality. He knew how everything had to be presented. He knew what happened in the past, and he knew what is going to happen in the future. Yet he performed everything in a logistic manner which a human mind could grasp. Even prior to the commencement of the war, he had a sort of a war council meeting with all the Pandava brothers. Nobody wanted the war. Yet they said war was inevitable. And when war is inevitable, how is he conducting himself? He could have said, I went as the ambassador, I showed my true form, they did not understand, so let us go and fight. He did not say this. He wanted a methodology before you engage yourself into a system of war. So a war council meeting was called, and Dharmaputra was asked, what is your opinion? Tomorrow war is starting. What do you want to do? He said, whatever has been decided, it is war, and we will go for it. No change in that person. He asked the second brother Bhima, and he said, whatever my brother said, yes, we are ready for war tomorrow. Arjuna said, yes, I am ready for war. Nakula said, I am ready for war. Sahadeva said, why are you asking this question? He was the only person who asked that question. In astrology, there is a branch of astrology that is known as Sahadeva astrology. He is a Trikala Jnani. He knew what was going to happen, and he knew why Krishna was doing this so-called meeting of war council members sitting there and discussing about the war. And Krishna went through the process even though he knew what was going to happen after the war, but he discussed it as if it was a very serious matter, because every minute detail has to be discussed with everybody, even though you know what the outcome is. That is human relationship. That is a necessity when you are in an organized fashion, seeking a higher purpose, a relief from a negative force. When Krishna did that, Sahadeva crossed him and asked him, why are you asking this question? You know what is going to happen. Why this unnecessary meeting? Immediately Krishna announced the meeting closed and walked out. Because it is very dangerous to talk to Sahadeva, as he knew what happened in the past, what is happening in the now, and what is going to happen. With such a person you cannot talk. And Krishna wanted to emphasize that point to the other brothers. Already what is going to happen is known. We fight a war. We do not know what the result will be. Everybody fights a war because they think after the war there will be peace. But we do not know the end result. We say we will liquidate one country within 21 days. Now 4.5 years later, there is no result. And we started an organization by saying we would resolve the world conflict. In 1945 they started. Not a single conflict have they resolved. What we are trying to do is to inflate our egos from an individual perspective, from a community perspective, from a national perspective. From international conflict zones, we are creating more and more inadequacies whereby we sustain our personalities in conflict. When two people are in conflict, it is good for the third person because he can go about his business. But if you understand the message of the wondrous Master Bhagavan Sri Krishna, you will resolve your conflict within yourself from a physical point of view. You will resolve your conflict within yourself from a psychological point of view. You will resolve your conflict from a mental point of view. You will resolve your conflict from an emotional point of view. You will resolve your conflict from a rational point of view. You will resolve your conflict finally with the Absolute by finding the spiritual solution to all the problems that you presume to be having thus far. You have had thus far or you will be ever having. It is that moment of cooperating, understanding, of sinking your personality into the oneness that is operating within us everywhere, in and out, everywhere in every galaxy. When you understand that point, you become the moment of peace, the grace of peace, the poise of peace, the charm of peace, the fragrance of peace, the vibration of peace, which Bhagavan Sri Krishna emphasized through the act of violence that we discussed today, or the act of war that we discussed today. Why should he make these people fight? We go on asking because we think we are intellectually capable of even questioning God's vision. But he demonstrated that only to make the lay mind understand what steps you have to cross before you reach that glorious peace which we are all seeking. And on this auspicious day, I wish that the power of Bhagavan Sri Krishna comes to us. Even a molecule of that grace, that simple look that he can give, the charming smile, the wink of his eye, great beings can give you an initiation by the utterance of a word, by a touch, by a look. If you look into the portal of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, there is a structured pattern, an exquisite presentation due to the vision that came to the Rishiputras. Even in recent times, Bhagavan Shivananda had Krishna's darshan 3 times in his own Ananda Kutir near the Ganges. And he worshipped that form and he saw Bhagavan Sri Krishna literally on 3 occasions that we know of. That is the grace of our Guru, who demonstrated that this is a possibility. We also seek that blessing which should come from Bhagavan Sri Krishna by invoking on such days, not once in 365 days, but by invoking in every moment of our existence, where we can tune ourselves to a higher frequency and call for that grace to flow into us. When that flow takes place, may we be lifted to the realm of perfection. This is my humble prayer at the feet of our masters and Bhagavan Sri Krishna. May his grace sour our impurities, sweeten our atmosphere, and lift us to great glory. Hari Om.